Okay, we'll resume normal session. Can we have the attorney give us an announcement from closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Direction given to staff, no reportable action from closed session.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to our city council meeting tonight. And a couple safety things I always like to mention is if you need to leave the building for some reason, we have an exit door there. And of course, the door that you came in. And then if you need to use the restroom, down the hallway, there's some restroom facilities. And then if we have to clear the room, we're going to make, Patrick will be the last person out of the building. And if we do have to clear the room, we'd like you all to meet in the parking lot on the other side of City Hall. Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have some special guests? Oh, looks like it.
Thank you for inviting us to lead your meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. We are student council members from Ophir School. My name is Stella. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance helps form a connection to our country, the United States of America. We are a country with a diverse population. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance instills a sense of patriotism for all people.
My name is Adeline. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we honor the flag and everything it represents. We say the Pledge of Allegiance to start our day at school, to begin official meetings or ceremonies, and we honor the flag at special events like ball games. We would like to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand, salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done, ladies. A little recognition for you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next item is adoption of agenda. Entertain a motion?
I move that we adopt the agenda.
My apologies.
Exempt.
One quick correction on the public hearing having to do with fireworks. There was just a numerical order on
Okay.
the ordinance, so we'll correct that. It's a clerical issue, so nothing really needs to change. We'll just make sure on the record that we'll make sure it's numbered appropriately.
All right. And is our public hearing timed?
That's item number 15, the timed item. Yes, the public hearing on number 15, just to make sure
Okay.
that we will make
All right.
sure the ordinance has the appropriate numbering.
We'll get to that. All right.
Yep.
So going back to the agenda, did you make the motion?
Yes, I made the motion. You're going to second.
Can we call the roll on the motion, the agenda?
Motion passed for 7 yeses.
Thank you. Presentations and proclamations. Do we have a presentation? Which one's first?
Yeah, let's go with the Gateway Project update
Okay.
first. We have Mark Mendez here to
Welcome.
give the council an update on what's been going on in the Gateway.
Council?
Hey, Mark, we have all those files here, so if you want us to bring.
So I think what I'd like to, because actually I brought Frank Ross, who's a handle the marketing for all this, who's got many, many years of experience doing this, and he's been doing it for 2 years on that same project. So I think if the council has any questions, they can kind of hear what's gone on and what that has done, other than just hearing lip service from me. 'Cause I keep on telling them that, but let's let them, if they have questions, they can deal with Frank, because he has a time constraint, so I'd rather let him get started, then I'll come in and follow with the images, and that's the images up there of what we're starting with in the corner. But I'll let Frank get started. Come on up, Frank.
Thank you. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you. You can ignore the Kansas City ad, it didn't quite me. Anyway, Frank Ross, I worked with C21. Prior to that, it was with the group, which was with my sister, who had been in Chico real estate for 50 years, Georgie Bellin, some of you may know her, but she's been on the county and things like that. Anyway, I retired from what I was doing, and after 30 years, I've been doing commercial real estate for 30 years. Some of the things that highlighted it is Marion Park. I did the first subdivision in Marion Park. It was in a group out of Fresno, and that's back when they were looking for affordable housing. Second thing is the county courthouse in Chico. Put that in for the people there at Marion Park. And then last year or 2 years ago, I got the VA into Chico to open their VA clinic. And I don't know if any of you ever experienced it or seen it.
Yes.
Just to let you know, I am putting another VA clinic into Santa Cruz. I'm one of their brokers out of Washington that they call on. So what we've been doing here is we had a Myeong grocery store that was looking to come up here. We spent a couple of 3 or 4 weeks with them, and because of the population up here, they thought it was a good move, and they slowed down. They really wanted to buy a building that was kind of ready, and the timeline would have taken more time. As far as the marketing thing, I spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,000 a month on marketing all the different properties that I have in and around Corning, Orland, Chico, Gridley, and Oroville. We do have a pretty good-sized force here on the C21 group in Oroville. And, you know, it's just, I think the economy kind of slowed down some of the growth. We did have a few people look at it, and it was a matter of development costs, which I think we're seeing more and more. Worked on the subdivision coming down the hill. It's going to be, I guess, building another setting here on the river base. And economy, you know, and people just hesitant. We did get, for those that don't maybe know, is that PG&E has purchased a building on Larkin Road, and it will be their tree maintenance group. So I don't know whether they're just going to bring in a lot of lawnmowers, but they will have a lot of trucks going up the hill, cutting down the old vegetation under their lines. Tried to get them to move some of their resident or their offices. They stopped right now in their building in Chico. Hopefully we can extend that. They're putting in a 70,000 square foot. They're mustering all of their offices together to try to build something that is meaningful. So we are pushing on that to see about that building. We did meet a couple weeks ago, last week, with the group out of Sacramento that is looking for the potential to build a number of different things. They haven't selected exactly what it is, but they were excited about something that might be a grocery store or something like that that would draw some people in there. And some other buildings, but they're not ready to disclose that. But it is a trial. Believe me, it's a trial in Chico. We lost Lulu's. Lulu's moved out of Chico and moved to Ontario for their distribution channel. The others that you might know, and some of, you know, Weiss McNair, they manufacture agricultural products. They are moving to Yuba City. These vacate these big warehouse systems, so it gets difficult. But, you know, we do get calls on it. At one time, if you can remember, there was all kinds of the call-in services there up at the airport. Well, they all moved because they moved back to the Bay Area, primarily, I guess, because they thought more people. But we have filled all of those buildings out at the airport with a battery manufacturer. So, I mean, it swings in and swings out. And right now, we're kind of getting back. The word in our grouping, which is not just Chico, not just here, is from the people that do commercial real estate. And we're seeing activity up here that we hadn't seen before. As you may have known, we just were really close on having Amazon put in 1 million square feet here. And then COVID and things like that. They are still peaking, and so hopefully we can get them here, or at least somewhere close. I did put an Amazon small stop into Orland, and they created 100 jobs, people driving the vans. So just want to get some of these people interested, and I think that what we've got here with the Gateway is just need to keep pushing on it and get some activity that, we've seen the other end on Oroville, and we've had people look at it. We did have some other people that looked at it. It was a car wash and fast food, and so it's just tough to get these companies right now to invest. And so that's where we are. We're coming forward. We have offices in 70 cities. So we send information to all of those people. You never know, especially with Los Angeles and Southern California. We're starting to get calls for people, not on my side, I don't do residential, but people looking for housing up in here, just because there's none there. All right, I thank you. And I have to go and pick up my dog from her 3 hours sauna.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions you can ask, have him, and I'll send it to you.
Oh.
All right?
We do have Councilman Goodson in the queue.
Good. I can enter.
Wow. I'm in shock. This
Okay.
has been an ongoing project for a number of years.
Absolutely.
And so I was hoping to see some major blueprints on the hotel that's going up, the fine dining, et cetera, et cetera. And so surely that's why you're up here now, because you're going to enlighten us.
Well, it's not a matter of enlightening, it's a matter of reality.
All
But
right?
But in
Give me
terms
the
of,
reality of it.
right, but in essence, I mean, they've actively marketed, not just Frank, there was a firm before Frank that has actively marketed for 2 solid years. These guys have put in big projects, that's what they do. But there's the reality of the economics of what we've gone through, whether it's COVID, interest rates, all those things have gone on. I could give you plenty of examples in this town that haven't happened because of economics in the last 2 years. And things that haven't sold, aren't selling, there's properties that are being auctioned that have no bids. So it's not
I get it. It's just really sobering.
Well, it is. It's
You
tough. It
know,
may solve us, but it's it's essentially on our dime too. We want to see it. We want to see it be built, and so that's why we spent the effort. Frank, he doesn't go. I'm on him twice a week. Their whole group. And it's not just Frank. There's a whole group of them that we spend time with, and we meet and go through. And we spent almost 9 hours with the group out of Sacramento last Friday ago, to look at the different possibilities. They bring hotel anchors, and that's one of the things that we have to have. And we can't just take
Right.
we can't just take one individual user and build that complex around them. We have to have a very large anchor.
Anchors.
Well, yeah, and there's reality, and there's, they don't run on, and you have a very small population base that we have to deal
Right.
with.
Right.
So it's going to take the right user. That's why we kind of took a different path. And what we did is we said we need to possibly develop the corners. And that's what I brought to you today, and say, look, we may have to build something to get some activity to show that there's something going on there. I mean, you have the buildings, there's right around there, you have across the street, you have the old cornucopia that hasn't been able to be sold at a discount for half of what it was sold for. The guy who bought it's probably going to lose, $500,000 because they can't sell it. The market's that weak in that respect. Restaurants are getting beat up. So we're going to have to do some flex space, and we're going to have to show some people that there's nice stuff available, and that's my thought process. And that's why what we have here today is what that corner is. If, Brian, you can go through these are elevations of what you'd be looking at in that corner, trying to establish a look of what would be in the complex.
We do have a question from Vice Mayor Smith.
Sure.
Yeah, the risk of sounding political, the national conversation,
Right.
right? So the attempt at repatriating a lot of jobs that have been transplanted to other parts of the world. And now with this new conversation, there seems to be some interest in bringing things back. So kind of from a high level, and given your connections, somehow getting Oroville in that conversation of this is a good opportunity right now, and to entertain some of those, industries out there, that this is a good place to reinvest if you're looking to come back to the States or back to California. And so just, is there any kind of Just high level, just your own sense, your
Well,
own feel,
No,
opportunity
I
that
understand. I
might be
mean,
there.
we're looking at every opportunity that we can possibly put in
Yeah.
there. We've turned down actually a couple of small players that we can't build around them. They would be icing. We have to have those major anchors, because we can't go design something all of a sudden and say, well, if a major hotel says, I would come, but you've already got this here and this, I don't have enough room. So I've been waiting for those guys. That's our first really strong one was just a couple weeks ago. But unfortunately, we're still pushing on those, and our economics are telling us that, we got to build something to come out of the ground to show that this is not just a piece of raw land there, and get some users in there, because activity, I think, is going to get us activity. So we can just leave it as raw land, but that doesn't really, so I'm staying away from what I feel is the most important property or space on the property is on the riverfront, because you can't duplicate that anywhere. So I'm stayed away from that and went to the corner, because that'd be enough high traffic, enough area, and enough visibility for coming off the freeway for the gateway to start showing something a little higher caliber and nicer looking in that respect. And that's what this corner represents. That's the corner looking at it from across the street. There's two, that's showing both the same angle. You have two pictures for that. One is the front, there's the front side, and then there's the back side. So you have two different images. One was the front and one was the back. You have a dark version and a light version, I think. Right. So then you have the floor plan, the site plans for that also. That's your actual corner of the Montgomery and Feather River going on there. There's waterfalls coming there on your water feature on Feather River Boulevard on the entrance over there. So there's a whole water feature going in that direction. The building has atrium, has outside patios. It's a nice setup. So my thoughts are that we would go submit this and establish the criteria and the colors and everything for the development, and get something coming out of the ground without a user, and taking the risk that they're going to come to it. That's really what we're looking at doing. So short of, we're not going to go build a hotel and hope somebody comes and leases it. It's not going to happen. So our thoughts are at this point is we went out there and said, look, let's build something that we think we can comfortably lease. It's a flex space. You can see those are the different spaces. That would be option for people. They can take 1, 2, 3, or 4 bays, whether it's going to be office, whether it be medical, or whether it be restaurants. But we all know the restaurant environment is pretty tough. So that's where but we need to build something to get out there to show, not just have raw land, so just to get somebody to say, well, picture this. We need something out of the ground. So that's the thought process there. So we would be ready to put that out of the ground this year. So that's where we're ready. That's those are different things we looked at there. We've done several models, from shopping centers to restaurants out there. There's, I think, 3 or 4 of those site plans. What's done is we've met with PG&E, we've met with all the underground, we've done all that stuff. So there's specific ways we can enter this property for egress, and where power is available, where gas is available, where the underground is available right now. So that road that wraps around, that you see the in and out, that's gonna wind up where it's gonna be at. So that's kind of shows you that we had a grocery store, we had a Dave and Buster's, we've all those that I've spent countless hours on pricing out. And again with tariffs and everything else going on, we don't know where the whole stuff ends up at. So everybody is pretty cautious. That's just the reality. I'd like to tell you, like you said, I'd like to tell you something different, but I don't want.
I get it.
Every month that goes on, it costs us money too. It's not a profit maker. It's a cost. And for the realtor, same way. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions, but I know everybody would like to see a big master plan development right up front, but it's just not reality of what the economics are out there right now. Anybody have any questions? I'd be happy to.
No. Good to go.
Just to follow up, yeah. So are you saying you're ready to submit this?
Yeah, it's already been designed, engineered,
Okay.
yeah, it's done. It's gonna have to go before, review for architectural review and all that to have that passed. But I think in the past, they were kept, Wes was wanting and asking to have, and Patrick was asking, we want to see a whole development. It's just not doable
Right.
in this, in the economy of it is right now. Yeah, you could do it, but it'd be a waste. You could design all you want, and it's all going to change once you know what the users are. So the corner is the only safe place that we could actually develop and say, we know that these are fixed corners, we're not changing that, and to get something there to show a higher caliber of building. So that's really kind of the avenue that we're going to go down. I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I'd be happy to answer. I live this thing every week. Believe me, I don't want to be,
Well, it reminds me of back in the day when I used to go deer hunting, and there were no deer. They might as well have sold us a buffalo tag. So I appreciate you coming and not
yeah, no, it's
trying to sell us.
I'm not trying to say, we want to develop it. I mean, the
Thank
bottom
you.
line is that we've spent a great deal of time and effort, money, everything involved to do it. I live here, just finishing building a house. So, I mean, yeah, we would definitely want to see it go through. So, if there's no questions, then I'll stand there. All right?
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is
It's true.
proclamation
Every year.
for Arbor Day, City of
Get no
Oroville.
deer.
Who has that? I guess you do, huh?
Yeah, this was the proclamation to recognize Arbor Day, which happens at the fourth Friday, I believe, of every April. Would you like me to read it, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, go ahead.
Resolution of the City of Oroville, of the City Council of the City of Oroville, California, recognition of Arbor Day 2025. Whereas the City of Oroville is blessed with rich natural landscape from the scenic Feather River to our abundant parks and green spaces, and trees play a crucial role in preserving our community's beauty and environmental health. And whereas trees in Oroville provide much needed shade during warm summers, improve air quality, reduce erosion along Feather River and throughout our rolling hills, and create a welcoming and vibrant city for residents and visitors alike. And whereas the residents of Oroville have long understood the importance of trees, from the towering oaks that define our historic neighborhoods to the new plantings that will shape our future. And whereas Arbor Day, celebrated last Friday of April each year, was first celebrated in 1872 and serves as a reminder of our responsibility to care for and expand our urban forests, ensuring a greener, healthier future for all who call Oroville home. And whereas the City of Oroville is proud to be designated as a Tree City USA community, reflecting our commitment of thoughtful urban forestry management and sustainability. And whereas celebrating Arbor Day provides an opportunity to educate our community and the benefits of trees, promote stewardship, and encourage businesses, schools, and residents to take part in planting and caring for trees in our city. And whereas Oroville's parks, schools, and neighborhoods thrive because of the dedication of our residents, who recognize that each tree planted today is an investment in the well-being of future generations. Passed, approved, and adopted by the Oroville City Council at a regular meeting on March 18th, 2025. And I will say, I know that the City of Oroville just had its big recognition of Arbor Day this past Saturday, and I'm not sure if Vice Mayor Smith has an update on how that event all went.
Thank you. Just briefly, so we gave away 200 trees courtesy of
Nice.
PG&E, and they went in a couple of hours. The event, I think, was quite successful. We also had a team from the Carolinas who did a tree circus for the kiddos, and it was very engaging and informative. So it's just a great day at our convention center. Next year is an opportunity for you if you missed out.
Yeah, I would add too that I think it was Home Depot had some little small bird cage kits and whatnot for the kids to assemble, and it was neat to see the kids on the floor with hammers and nails and building their little birdhouses right on the spot. And I have to commend Home Depot. I'd never seen such a thing, but their prepackaged setups, and it's one of those little things as a kid you'd never forget that. Yeah, I built a birdhouse inside the convention center. Very cool. I would actually entertain a motion to pass this resolution 9358.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Motion passed for 7 yeses.
All right, and I want to thank all the folks that contributed to the Arbor Day celebration at the convention center. There was a lot of booths there, and there was a lot of products there, from transit issues to just across the board, and just all a nice quality of life issues for the community to get involved in. So And I want to thank the chamber and Eric for putting it all together. It was a big deal. It was really nice. I remember years ago, all we had was trees planting at a school site. Now it's really blossomed into quite an event. And I know Susan Sims ran out of seeds to plant things with. She had a huge table there, and it was almost gone by the time. So everybody's very involved in getting things growing. That's a very positive thing for the community. Okay, public communication hearing of non-agenda items. Do we have any slips, Nancy?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. First, we have Skipper Clark, followed along as the cameraman.
And Skipper was there too, presented, by the way. Thank
Yeah.
you. Great
Welcome-
job.
Welcome, Skipper.
Thank you. I'm the garden manager for the community garden on Wyandotte, but I'm here in my own, speaking on my behalf of myself. And first, I would like to thank the City Council for the support of the Arbor Day celebration. I really believe it is supporting community activities like this that make our city feel special and a great place to live. Well, I'm here today to speak to you in order to register my protest of your recent decision to declare Oroville a non-sanctuary city. The community of Oroville needs and benefits from our Hispanic neighbors and their contribution to our labor force. Currently, we're a nation facing a number of overlapping crises. Our debt to GDP ratio is in dangerous territory, and we need to address federal government spending, but not in the chaotic manner and without a consensus as it is being done right now. Our government's recent actions have created a climate of fear and confusion, and I'm asking the council to please be aware of how this is affecting our fellow citizens. Please don't follow the current administration in their denigration of those who may be different from you in their race, creed, or sexual orientation. I fear racism may have a chance to raise its ugly head just as it has in the past with our former Chinese population. History shows us that in the 1870 census, Oroville's Chinese population was 3,500 people. However, the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act made it impossible for a Chinese person to become a citizen. This fueled anti-Chinese sentiment and violence, leading to massacres and forced removal of Chinese residents. The act was finally repealed in 1943 when the U.S. wanted Chinese help in the fight against the Axis powers. We need to recognize that not all laws are good laws and may need changing. Protest and citizen input is one time-honored method of bringing about change. I believe we need to embrace our neighbors to the south and the north, and yes, incarcerate any and all lawbreakers, but do not deny them their rights, guaranteed in our Constitution as found in the Bill of Rights. We need all hands on deck during this time of great change in the world. Solving problems through consensus is in all of our best interests. And I would like to finish with a quick positive story from 1858 that happened here in Oroville. This story was retrieved by Claude, my artificial intelligence assistant. And AI is one of the biggest and one of the great changes that I'm speaking of that our nation and our world is facing. The incident occurred in 1858 during the California Gold Rush period when citizens of Oroville protected Chinese residents from an angry mob from Dogtown, which is now called Magalia. In March of 1858, a group of
Thank you, sir. Good story. Who is next? Cameraman?
Next, we have the cameraman, followed along as Brian Wan.
Okay. Welcome.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. Update to the my last comment at the previous meeting regarding former employee Jonathan Sanzone. A little bit surprised. They filed motions in limine, but both of the defense and the prosecution have the same witness that was unavailable. So the trial got continued to next month. So we will see if he gets prosecuted or not over in Glenn County for his alleged misdeeds. And if you've ever been to the Glenn County Courthouse in Willows, especially now after the renovation, it's a trip. It's like if you've seen that movie My Cousin Vinny, and it's like the old courthouse, the judge's chamber actually butts up to the courtroom. I was able to see his computer, and he had a kangaroo on his background so I don't know if that says something, with the term kangaroo court, but it was an experience nonetheless. Beautiful building. Anyways, I've had a subject some people have mentioned to me and wanted to bring up. Since we're talking about buildings in town earlier this evening, be an opportunity to bring it up. Some people have been asking me, I'm kind of unaware myself, but the new building that's being built by the behind the Maverick, some people haven't seen a sign or anything indicating what that might be. I'm sure you guys probably know, but some people were asking me if it's not already something to look into, but like making it like, you don't have to buy a billboard or a big, banner, but something to place out there like coming soon, just to, not so much as, penalizing people over that, but maybe something to amend the ordinance. It's just, to show, hey, advertise, this is what we're bringing to your town, not just what's a building, because, there's a few, I'll give an example is, they built these buildings by Little Caesars and, people, well, what's going to be there? What's going to be there? What's there is an empty building with, it looks like they could put 3 different spaces if they partitioned it out and just for lease. And it, economy is dictating, a lot of businesses right now, but it's like, we like the gentleman said, we don't want to build a hotel and hope somebody leases it. So, we don't want to have buildings going up in the town and nobody's going to lease them. That could have been gone to an opportunity, someone that actually wanted to come in there and place something that needed all of that space or something the city could have used. I'm not saying we're going to put a homeless shelter right next to Little Caesars. As much as they probably would enjoy that convenience, but, that could have been, used something, other than just an empty building. So I'll conclude on that with my 15 seconds remaining. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Just for info, the banners went up today.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, they're on the fence. What was the other one?
Next, we have Brian Juan, follow along as Carlo Ramirez.
Oh, Brian. Welcome, Brian. You're good.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Councilors. I want to bring you, as well as citizens of Oroville, to the attention of a recent ad that's put out by PG&E talking about the high cost of power in our region. And this is a huge issue because as a restaurateur, I talk to a lot of people, businesses, small and big, as well as industrial businesses here in our city. Private citizens who's trying to heat their homes. So energy is the basis for everything that we do. When we use our computers, we need energy. When we travel, some of us are driving electric cars now. So it's the basis for everything. So when our utility company puts out an ad trying to address the high cost of power, it's very concerning. We've been trying to fill some businesses downtown. We can't fill them because I've introduced it to many investors, and when they do the math, between the high insurance costs, the PG&E costs, and then also high cost of labor, they can't make the math work. So they don't come in. So understanding that, high cost for energy is definitely a problem right now. So when you look at the ad that PG&E puts out, they attribute the cost to the high cost of burying the wires and also maintaining the vegetation. So those are, very high costs, indeed. But in business, we also know that there's, it's only one component of how much you make. You have to look at profits as well. So PG&E is a publicly traded company. You can go online and figure out like how much they make in a year and what the costs are and stuff. So it's very interesting that when I go online and do the research and ask AI, hey, what's the condition, health condition of PG&E? Should I be concerned for them? So when I did the research, 2024 was a record net profit year, the second consecutive year in a row. So then that gets me very angry. So as a customer of PG&E, my question is, what am I obligated to? That if you can't meet your costs, I know that they need to exist. We can work with them. But when you're making record profits on the backs of a community that's struggling, and we can't get people to pay their bills, and also we can't invite businesses in, that's a detriment to our community. So yes, we do need to have a very serious conversation on this topic matter, and I'm glad that PG&E is inviting the conversation. So at the city level, this is a very good question. So the question is, well, as a city, as PG&E customers, what are we obligated to? And the employees of PG&E, they're great, but I think this is a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Next, we have Carlos Ramirez, followed along with Bill Spare.
Welcome, Carlos.
Hello, hello. Good evening, Mayor Pittman, council members, and members of the community. My name is Carlos Ramirez, and I am a born and raised resident of Oroville. Woohoo. And I am here tonight because I strongly oppose Oroville's recent decision to declare itself a non-sanctuary city. This resolution was presented as a public safety measure, but nowhere in your discussion did you provide evidence of a crime problem in Oroville that was caused by undocumented immigrants. Instead, you cited cases from San Francisco, San Mateo, Los Angeles, and other areas that have nothing to do with our local community. This tells me two things. This resolution was not based on local crime data, but rather on a narrative meant to justify targeting immigrants. The council is pushing an idea that paints immigrants as criminals, even though multiple studies show that immigrants commit crimes at a lower rate than US-born citizens. What you have done is sadly created an environment where immigrant families, workers, and students in Oroville now feel unsafe, not because they are criminals, but because they feel targeted by their own city government. I ask you, how does this resolution make Oroville safer when no local data supports that we had an immigrant issue or immigrant crime issue to begin with? And if the true goal was public safety, why does this resolution focus on immigration status instead of proven strategies that actually reduce crime in Oroville? This resolution does not reflect the values of a welcoming, inclusive, and thriving community that I know Oroville is. It sends a message that only certain people are welcome here. I urge you to please reconsider this resolution and instead focus on policies that actually improve safety for all Oroville residents, regardless of immigration status. Because at the end of the day, immigrants are not the problem here. It's policies like this one that are. Thank you. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, Carlos.
Next, we have Bill Spare.
Mr. Spear.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Got verse and a prayer. Verse for today is John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. I'll throw in verse 2 also. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. And in him was life, and that life was a light to mankind. The light has shined in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. And then I really like verse 14 too. It says, and the Word became flesh and dwelled among us, talking about Jesus. Father God, we thank you for the verse of the day, the Word. You sent forth your word to heal us and deliver us from all destruction. We pray your word over our city council, that if we put you first, that you bless us, that Seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all the other things will be added. That if we lack wisdom, ask God, who gives generously, and it will be given. And so we do ask for wisdom. We ask for guidance. We ask for provision. We ask for protection. Your word, it says, ask and you shall receive, or it two or more gathered in your name, and that we ask that we'll receive. And we're putting it into practice, and we're believing your word. We're believing for your guidance, your supernatural provision. We thank you that we have your word, that it's alive and active, that it changes us and transforms us and renews us and heals us. And we speak your word over our families, over our city, the city of gold, that we would be a city on a hill, a light on a shelf, that we would be, that the word would become flesh in us and be active, that we would walk in it, that we would reflect it, and that it would go forth and accomplish what you have set it forth to do, not just for our city, but for our county, for our state, which is definitely in need of a miracle. In our nation, we thank you, Lord, for what you're doing. We thank you for the men and women of God that are activated, that are being your ambassadors, that are bringing in the harvest. It says the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So pray to the Lord of the harvest for laborers. And so we come in obedience this evening, and we pray for more, that you would shake them free from the jailhouse, under the bridges, wherever it is the enemy has them bound. In Jesus.
Thanks, sir.
We do not have any more, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you all for your comments on non-agenda items. The next is the reports and discussions, council announcements and reports. Any council announcements in the queue? Councilman Reynolds.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say welcome home to the astronauts that made it home this afternoon, and what an amazing thing to be able to watch. Don't really have anything else. Just wanted to say something about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Goodson's in the queue.
Yes, I just wanted to announce very quickly and proud that the nonprofit that I work for, Youth for Change, is a sponsor of the 20th Annual Prom Project. It's free prom attire. They have a lot of new merchandise from Macy's and I believe it's Lulu's. And so March 16th through March 20th, there's hours on Sunday, 1 to 5 p.m., and Monday through Thursday, 3 to 6 p.m. And we are looking for volunteers at that time as well. So once again, the 20th Annual Prom Project, and it is extremely successful year after year. And it's at 1200 Myers Street.
Anyone else looking around the room? I should mention I'm also on the Housing Authority, so I attended Washington, D.C. last week and made a lot of discussions and topics in Congress on housing issues for our communities and trying to bring back some more money for housing. I have some foldouts that I offered to the councilman you should be in your mail slots. Oh, you've got, those are from the California Association of Housing Authorities, and those were the issues that we were pitching to all the legislators. And it was an interesting time. There's a lot of things going on back in Washington. But you might think, what does a little city like Oroville have? There's a lot of things that are going on. And it's good that we got a chance to, raise our hand and say, hey, don't forget about us. Also, I want to repeat the success of Arbor Day. I think it was a great activity and really very nice. And it's just amazing how it's grown. And again, compliments to our vice mayor. That was a big effort to get together. Yes. And there was just so many people having so many things. And I think if they brought 200 trees next year, they'd definitely get rid of them real quick. I mean, that was a very popular idea. In fact, I did not get my crabapple, which I was given instructions to get the crabapple, and I'm I'm gonna have to go buy one now, so that's a problem. Administration reports. Administration, boy, I can't speak.
I have one quick update, Mr. Mayor. The city entered in an MOU with the Butte County Behavioral Health for a sobering center a number of months ago. I just wanted to let you know, I got a report back for the numbers in February. And again, this is the sobering center is a 12-bed facility located on Cohasset and Chico, and it's a short-term sobering center that also provides ideally long-term treatment options for these folks who go there. It's a voluntary, you voluntarily go there for sobering and then ideally treatment. In February, they served 254 individuals.
Jeez.
And of course, I said, well, how many Oroville residents did you serve? And
Right.
out of those, 25 were from the city of Oroville.
25.
So it is being used. I know law enforcement's aware of it as a tool that they can utilize. I've communicated with Oroville Hospital as well as for them to be able to use this tool. So it's being used right now, and I'll keep you appraised as we get more updates on how it's going over there.
So OPD has escorted and documented 25.
No, it's a combination of escorted from OPD, but also if they voluntarily go there, they could have a family member take them there, they could have a friend take them
okay.
there. So it's a combination, but OPD is utilizing the tool as well.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
That's awesome.
Any other departments? Go ahead, Alyssa.
Sure. I just wanted to remind the council and the public to, go ahead and email the city or call when you see potholes around town. So I know that there's been a number of new potholes developing with all this rain. We can't get out and be looking at every mile of road, and so it's really helpful to just be notified. I mean, even if we hear it from a couple directions, it's never like a bother to us. We really appreciate the public feedback. Did you have a comment? Oh, okay. I'll jot that down.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. And then just wanted to let you know that we are wrapping up interviews this week for a new cultural facilities curator. So we had 5 very great candidates. We narrowed it down to 2, and hopefully we'll have an offer extended by the end of the week. We do have an online encroachment permit system that we've been using, but we are still working through kinks. I just wanted to make sure the public was aware of that. If you have encroachment permits, there is an online portal system now, so it can be done without needing to drop off forms at City Hall. 3 bids. I'm not sure if we talked about this last time, but for the Courtyard project, there were 3 bids received, and interviews with 2 of those, the top 2 construction companies will occur next week.
Oh, good.
2 park maintenance techs should be starting at the end of the month.
Oh, that's good.
And the city is continuing its coordination also with Pacific West Builders on the Table Mountain Boulevard flooding issue that we were having. So just to let you know, work is still being occurring on that. In fact, we have a construction set that's probably at 95% to be able to make those repairs. Staff have been busy, so there's been 5 days of paving, 83 tons of asphalt placed, which is about just shy of 6,000 square feet of work done. So you'd see them out on 5th Street, Stafford, Broderick, and Hammond Park, and 2nd Street. We already talked about the Arbor Day celebration. It was a success. Our patching trailer, which was, I think, ordered in like 2023, finally arrived.
Wow.
Yes. So we have another tool now for asphalt repair. It's equipped with all kinds of, tack oil, vibroplate, and the ability to keep up to 5 tons of asphalt hot overnight, so we can be doing hot patches instead of the cold patches that seem to just fall apart. Also trying to bring more amenities back to the park, so we've got new drinking fountains, bottle filling stations installed at Hammond Park, Centennial, and Hewitt.
Good.
And then also just wanted to let everyone know that Butte County Public Health is working on a Butte County Safety Action Plan project, and they have a public workshop on March 25th from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Southside Community Center. So just if you have any feedback for them on road safety, that's a good place to voice your opinion.
Councilman Weber has a question, I believe.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just wanted to kind of comment on that trailer. That was far cooler in person to see that thing than I ever imagined it actually would be. What a cool investment. I look forward to seeing this out on the roads. It's got that articulating conveyor belt arm in the back, so it's got a chute that feeds it out. So way better than I imagined. I imagined it was just gonna be a hot trailer with like a door that opened and you stuck a shovel in, and no, this thing's like fully functional, lowers and raises the vibratory compactor, articulating doors that open. It's really cool piece of equipment. I like that you said it keeps it hot overnight, because it says like it's spec'd for like 72 hours or something, but asphalt is made of like emulsified this and that and oils and all this stuff. It's gonna separate after time. So overnight's probably more realistic, but I am so looking forward to seeing this thing out, because with what I've seen, if this thing goes down the road with some regular traffic control, block off an intersection, and work from like stop sign to stop sign in any one of the districts, right? It doesn't have to be downtown, but any one. I bet you could have a 2 or 3 or maybe a 4-man crew do a lot. And I mean fast, and it will be lasting. It won't be the prettiest patchwork in the world, but it'll be far, far superior than the current cold patch system we're using now. Okay? Because the cold patch, it's okay, but it blows apart. If we have good weather, even in the middle of winter, and we lay that asphalt down, we compact it in, it's gonna give us way more lasting repairs that'll get us into spring. So this is gonna be an excellent piece added to your arsenal of tools to use. So I'm super excited about that. Thank you.
Good to hear.
Absolutely.
Mr. Belser? You've
Good
been having a
evening,
lot of fun lately.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Yeah, I'm really happy to announce that an update on our homes that have been burnt or part of dead property owners where people have squatted for years. We just demolished 2 of them this last week and the week prior. And we have 1 left in Southside Oroville. That's residential. We have a couple commercial buildings that we are going to go after when we get done with this last one. But it is, it's a big feat and a big accomplishment. And I have a really good crew that has, went and got past hurdle after hurdle, whether it be PG&E, whether it be the courts, whatever, to just keep pushing to get these homes demolished. And I mean, just one house in general, over the last 2 years, had 71 police calls as a result of squatting or people with fires or, so it's nice to just see bare land there. And hopefully we can get some developers interested in taking over that property and developing it.
Yeah, Councilman Johnstone has a question.
Thank you. Mr. Belzer, I just want to say how much we appreciate you and your team for all the hard work that you do. It's frustrating sometimes to see on social media that, people don't have anything nice to say about our city and our public works and our code enforcement. And can you tell us how many times a day you move people along underneath our overpasses, please?
I will tell you, and that's not a code enforcement thing, but I will tell you especially the last 3 months, the support from the police department. I listen to my police radio all the time, and it is so amazing to hear at 6 a.m. when I'm rolling into work that they're out there, boots on the ground, moving individuals along. It is a daily situation, and
multiple times a day, right?
Multiple times a day.
I just want to make sure that I heard you correctly.
It's nice to see that type of support from the police department. I mean, they're out there in front of our museums. They know the hot spots now. I mean, I hear it every morning, and it's that type of work that has to, change the quality of life in our city. And it's important. And then, we go along with City Works and our code enforcement guys and deal with the trash that's left behind and so forth, just to keep the city nice and neat. And it takes everybody at the city to make that work. It just doesn't, it's not just code enforcement, it's not just City Works, you got the police department, you got Public Works. Everybody has to have some type of involvement for there to be success there. It's nice to drive along Highway 70 and not look over and see camps everywhere. It doesn't matter what city I visit, I see that, and I feel sorry for them, and I wish that, they could look like us, but they don't. But I just think that drive, we got to just continue that way and be smart and reasonable how we address these issues and, keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate your outlook on that. You've always been very respectful of our community members who, live that life. And it doesn't matter how many times a day our Public Works or whoever is out there, they come right back, correct? Yeah, so
Absolutely.
it's not that we don't address it, it's just that it's a constant battle. Yeah, it's a constant, it's just something that has to be addressed multiple times a day, every day. And so if you as a community member see that happening, please contact the city and it will get taken care of. It's just that as soon as it gets taken care of, they go do something else somewhere else, and then it's right back. So it's not that it's not being addressed, it's just that it's something that continuously has to be addressed. I want to thank all of you guys for all of your hard work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilman Weber's in the queue.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to also comment on the work that you guys have been doing over in Southside as well. And it's important to note that that this is a years-long process, right? To get to where you guys are at right now with these houses and abating them. The work of Public Works and code enforcement together, you guys doing this work. But it's also important to note and recognize Councilmember Goodson and her efforts over in Southside to champion the abatement of these problem houses, because they have been an incredible problem for a long time. And so I think it takes a village to do things like this, and you guys are doing a great job. Yeah. So I just wanted to acknowledge all of the work done together. Our new chief doing the work he's doing as well. Mm-hmm. And then I just wanted to kind of piggyback off that Highway 70 overpass thing that Councilmember Johnstone was just talking about. And this can't be stressed enough, because, this is such a high-profile area, right? Everybody's stopped. A lot of people are stopped under the freeway heading westbound, right? And then they look to the left, they look to the right, they see the antics and shenanigans and the nonsense, and probably even smell some of the offensive smells. And you're dealing with like 3 people there that constantly return. The moment you move along, they come right back. Okay, and they are all educated on what they can do, what they can't do. They know what their rights are, and so it's like move them along. And I see it. You guys move along every single morning, and then they're right back. And so you guys are up against a heck of a dilemma. So our constituency sees this as they drive by, and all they see is the continued cycle, cycle. And they're like, "Why can't you do anything?" Well, unhoused or housed people have rights. And so you guys are up against that, so I want to commend you for what you are doing.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of work there that needs to be done, and you guys are up against it. And I just really appreciate all the work you guys do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and just to add to the crescendo here, why it's so important.
I love your words.
Crescendo.
I might put that on a t-shirt.
So additional value added to what you do and how it makes an impact to Oroville's reputation. Did you know that people come from all around the world to our hospital, believe this or not, to receive specialized treatment for cancer? Did you know that PG&E is a training facility? People come from all around the country to Oroville to receive special certification. And so you're our welcome mat. You're rolling it out and keeping us looking good and shining. So thank you.
Thank you.
I've got to add a short note here, because at the conference I was at last week, one of the meetings was over the National Housing Coalition that represents the legal folks in this particular category of population. And I asked about collecting a national database on the amount of people that are service resistant.
Mm-hmm.
And the attorneys told me that doesn't exist.
The data does not exist.
They said the data doesn't exist. Well, if we don't know what the data is, we can't fix the problem. So I tried to get that as a new element to be in the data collection business, because if we don't know the service resistant ones, we can't deal with them. And that's where I think we're hearing the service resistant ones, which all the other fellow authorities in my group all totally agreed with that concept, that there needs to be there is that population that are service resistant, and they're the ones that are the repeat offenders, the ones that continually come back and create the problems that we all know. And it's not a big month, it's a few, but the gentleman was an attorney on the Grants Pass, Oregon case, and he had some interesting concepts of that. But across the nation, I got to say, this is a big problem. It's not a small problem to California anymore. It's a big problem in every state, and every housing authority has people dealing with it. And I heard a lot of different variations of that. So we're doing a really good job. I just have to say that. And Councilman Goodson's next in the.
Yes, I just wanted to piggyback. Kudos and accolades to someone that we don't see that works very hard for us judicially behind the scenes is Sam Emerson. Sam.
From Cole and Huber.
Yes, from Cole and Huber. He is our attorney, our code enforcement attorney. He works extremely hard. Not once has he not said, Janet, stop calling me. Janet, stop sending me pictures. He is always available, even after hours. So I appreciate him, and I appreciate our judges that make the warrants happen. So thank you. Teamwork truly does make the dream work.
Yes. We are truly blessed in this area because there are areas south of us where judges would not allow this to happen.
That's right.
True.
Unfortunately.
That's
true.
right.
That's true. All right, any other department heads? Mr. Chief is looking like he's going to grab that microphone.
Well, I'll just do some updates. Cal Chiefs last week, interesting meeting with a lot of the big wigs and seeing how they do things and comparing. I had an opportunity to meet with Huntington Beach Chief and a captain down there to kind of compare notes and see how they're addressing some things. So wonderful connection with them. They're very easy to work with and excited to work with in one way or another. So your attorney that initially started the process has now gone on to Washington, D.C. So they're going to help put us in contact if we'd like that connection.
Oh, excellent.
So
Good to hear.
in addition, in about 2 to 3 weeks, we will have a lateral detective coming on board.
All right. Cool.
Particular detective has decade or plus experience and is highly skilled in the forensic analysis aspect with computer and phones, and is a special victims detective. So we're excited to play her right into the system. In addition, we have a lieutenant in the application and the background process. So we're going to have a new patrol lieutenant on board coming on here soon.
Excellent.
On the downside, we do have one anticipated resignation of one of our officers is going to move off and move out of state. So wish that officer the best of luck, and we'll keep on moving forward.
All right. Thank you, sir. Good update. Anybody else? Going once, going twice?
The finance department, we just have a couple big things going on. We opened up, is this not working?
It's not on.
We just opened up the 25-26 budget. So we're on target to bring you the budget in the first meeting in June. And I wanted to let you know that I'll be going on vacation tomorrow. I'll be back Monday. But I'm really excited for this vacation. It's the first time I'll have a accounting manager there covering me. And it really feels good to know that everything is going to be covered. And we spent 2 days last week, 2 full days training in our new software for budget and salary and benefits projections. And it did take 2 full days, which I hope a lot of that is set up and we don't have to do that every year. But we did all of that in test. And so next week, we're going to have 2 mornings and we're going to do it live in our production and maybe a couple different iterations with different scenarios. But so we're moving forward with our new software and learning how to use it, and it's going to really help this budget.
Thank you for the update. It's good information. All right, folks. Next item is consent agenda. Anyone have an item on the consent agenda to either look at, or I'll entertain a motion?
Looks good. I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Call roll.
Motion passed with 7 yeses.
Okay, do we want to go regular business or handle the public hearings now?
Public hearing.
All right, we'll open up the public hearings, get those going, which start with item number 13. So now at, what do we got? 5:48, we'll open the public hearing. First item is 13, first reading of the zoning code amendment ZC 24-04, amending section 17.04.060 definitions and chapter 17.20 sign regulations of the Oroville Municipal Code, OMC. Welcome, Wes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public, we have Connor Musler, who will present this item remotely.
All right. Welcome, Connor. You're on.
Perfect. Let me get my screen up. All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is a update to our sign code. We'll just go over some history real quick, cover the regulations, and have some time for some questions at the end. So some of you may remember, some of you may not, but sign code update was a big project that started back in 2016. It fell by the wayside with some staffing changes before it was restarted in 2020. There, the Planning Commission held multiple workshops. They discussed some key changes related to maintenance provisions, square footage and height changes, and some design requirements. That sign code update was adopted by the City Council in June of 2021. So we've been working with that sign code since then. We've noticed that we've been running into some issues with regulations and interpreting the code. So thought it would be time to kind of address some of those issues we've been running into. So purpose of the sign code, really it's to establish design criteria, area, height, quality of materials, things related to signs that balance public safety, health, and welfare. Visualizing, really the impact of signage and how that plays within the community. This is an example that we talk about in planning school, and it's the Anaheim resort area around Disneyland. The left side, you can see, how it used to look. That's signage in its unregulated form almost, where you can have signs anywhere of any height, multiple different ways. And then on the right side is the Anaheim resort area after the city went through redevelopment and implemented, more stringent design criteria, allowing shorter heights, but more consistent design criteria. So that's just an example of, the good and the bad of how signs are. Dealing with some definitions, these are some key terms that we'll deal with tonight. Wall signs, they're signs that are affixed to the wall of the building. Monument signs, they're a little bit shorter. They're placed on the ground on a solid base. Sign programs, they're a coordinated sign plan for one or more businesses. They incorporate common elements. They're very site-specific regulations. Freestanding signs, they're a detached sign that is elevated by one or more supporting structures. A pole sign, they're just supported by a single pole, and a freeway-oriented sign is a sign that's intended to be viewed from the freeway. In general, where you can place signs, how large of a sign you can have, those things are really dependent on zoning, of course, but also the length of your street frontage. If you have a longer length, you can usually have larger signs. Your building frontage, how does it face the street? Does it face the parking lot? How long is that? It also plays into how large of a sign you can have and where you can place them. If you have a property that fronts a freeway, you'll likely have a freeway-oriented sign. So these things all come into play when staff are reviewing signs and property owners want to propose signs. Diving into it, for wall signs, some things that we've noticed under the current regulations, there is not a maximum number of wall signs that you can have. So really, you can have an unlimited number of wall signs as long as if those signs do not occupy more than 10% of the wall area, and the total area for all signs on the property does not exceed the maximum. That maximum is based on the linear footage of building frontage, so that's where that comes into play. In addition, you can have a banner permanently. So if you open up a business, you can just put a banner up there and keep it for as long as the banner will be there. This is kind of some extreme examples, but this is what, not having a limitation on the number of signs on a frontage. You can have as much as you want as long as you don't exceed 10%. This is an example on the bottom of banners being used on a semi-permanent basis. It doesn't really match the look of the building. And then this one on the right over here is an example of kind of the limitation of using that 10% of the wall area. You can have buildings that don't have a lot of wall area. In this instance, you have a building that has, top quarter of the building plane as a roof space. That doesn't count as building frontage, that's roof area. You can't put the sign there. You're really limited to calculating this bottom spot and this little parapet area. So if you were to have it as a building frontage, 1.5 square feet per linear foot, if it had a 50 foot of frontage, you can have 75 square feet of signs versus 10% of the wall area. You're doing height, width, math, all these different things. Gets a little bit difficult. So changing for wall signs, banners, you can't use them as permanent signage. You can have them as what they were intended for, a permanent basis. You can have them to advertise grand openings, special events. You don't need to get a permit for those, but you shouldn't have them on a permanent basis because they're just not maintained very well. In addition, setting a maximum of 1 wall sign per frontage facing a street or parking lot. If you have 4 sides of your building that face a street or parking lot, you can have 4 signs. Those are going to be limited still to that 10%, but it's easier to calculate now with the maximum of 1.5 square feet of signage per linear foot of building frontage. These are where some of the bigger changes come into play, and this relates to freestanding signs. So under the current regulations, depending on where you are, you can have a freestanding sign of 8 feet all the way up to 85 feet. Those 85-foot tall signs are what you would see like with McDonald's, with Starbucks and Feather River Crossings. The existing regulations, they can be overly restrictive and unclear. In addition, the code does not include regulations for those signs that are intended to be viewed from the freeway, which really sets up the door for a lot of businesses or property owners requesting variances and exceptions to the sign code, which is not really the best case to do that. In addition, you can have a freestanding sign and a monument sign on the same parcel, but there's no distancing requirements between them. So you could place a monument sign immediately next to, right underneath of a freestanding sign, and it doesn't look very good, or you're combining things. It's not very kosher with code. So what does a quarter mile look like? It's really anywhere within this red box. If you fall within this red box, you can put a 85-foot tall sign. It doesn't matter if it's intended to be viewed from the freeway. It could be targeting local traffic. It could be located, in this instance, up here off of Nelson Avenue, all the way by the clerk recorder's office. You could have an 85-foot tall sign. The intent of having an 85-foot tall sign is to target freeway traffic, to be visible, to get people off the road. So what we're proposing is really setting in new criteria for freeway-oriented freestanding signs. That's where the code doesn't have any regulations. If you want to have a freeway-oriented freestanding sign, there'll be new regulations for that. You can go up to 85 feet in height for if you're within a quarter mile radius of a freeway off-ramp. It's targeting for those areas like this within the quarter mile where services would be clustered, where you want to see people get off the freeway, where those signs would really attract them to. In addition, the proposed changes would require a 75-foot separation for freestanding signs and monument signs on one property, increase the sign height for signage along State Route 162. Currently, it's limited to 8 feet. We now have signs that are up to 40 feet, 25 feet. Trying to get this a little bit more consistent. 162 is a heavy trafficked road. It's targeting a lot of travelers. They should be able to have a little bit higher of a sign height along there. And then the last one, sign programs. Sign programs can honestly be very beneficial for new development and redevelopment. It allows the property owner to have site-specific sign criteria established. It allows them to really narrow down where signage can go on the property, how much signage can be allocated per tenant. But under the current regulations, it's very restrictive in what the modifications are allowed. Currently, you're only allowed to modify from square footage by 10%. That really only gives a very little bit of leeway to these individuals. Sign programs are also voluntary, so couple that with the restrictive regulations, it really disincentivizes their uses. So to address this, instead of going through a variance procedure, the sign program would be utilized if an individual is requesting to deviate from code. This would allow for a more comprehensive plan for a property so that it's able to have all signs taken into account. Instead of coming in requesting a variance to have a taller sign, it should be able to take into account where is that sign being placed? How does it relate to the rest of the property? And does it fit in with the scale of the development? In addition, allowing greater flexibility for modifications under the sign program, removing those overly limiting provisions of like 10%, no more than 5 feet in height, things like that. In addition, detailing the submittal requirements for a sign program in code so everybody knows what you would need to have to submit for a sign program, and clarifying who the review authority for sign programs are. If you're requesting a deviation, it goes to the Planning Commission. If you're just following code, it's just through an administrative development review. With that, I'll just be available for any questions that you may have on the proposed amendments.
Council, any questions? Vice Mayor Smith is in the queue.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the presentation. It kind of helped clarify a few questions I had. Regarding the temporary banner, it was just brought up that we have a new business coming, and folks were wanting to know what that was. And I understand the banner just went up today. But that building, I would assume, is not going, the lights aren't going to come on, and we're not going to see chicken rolling out for longer than 30 days. So that would mean that that banner would exceed the new regulation, as I understand it, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah.
So you have you have the chain link, and I get the purpose. We don't want ratty-tatty banners staying up for months and months at a time. But would that be a problem in that particular instance here, where you have a building being constructed, folks are wondering what's going on in there, and then of course that sign's going to exceed that 30-day limit.
Absolutely.
So is there? Am I missing something, or is that potentially a problem?
Yeah, so that would not be a problem under these proposed amendments. There is a separate section regulating temporary signs for the future use of a building under construction or remodel. So that is going to be separate from these regulations. Those are allowed to be on site until such time as the building is occupied and construction is complete. And then after that's completed, they can come in afterwards and have a grand opening sign, coming soon, sale sign. Those are the types of signs that would be regulated for the banners of no more than 30 days.
Okay, I appreciate that. And it would be great to get where I can find that information in our code. And then just a follow-up with that, back to the temporary sign piece. Because Oroville, we do a lot of events. Obviously, it pointed out that I'm involved in those from time to time. And so as far as again, there was no pointing to our ordinances regarding, event special exceptions. And so when this is complete, is there going to be a direction? So if somebody's looking at it, in other words, and they're saying, oh, you can't do that, that's not allowed. Is there something that's going to point out, the exceptions? And so there's a little bit more clarity with that. And then also just a quick follow-up, and I'm sure there's more to know. And then what kind of additional restrictions in the historic overlay piece when it comes to those temporary signs?
Yeah, so for temporary signs intended for advertising a special function, there is also a separate section within code already. It's 17.20.090 temporary signs. Within the banner sign section in these tables that you see in the red line format in the ordinance, there is a code reference to those if it's for a special function. So we would have a quick link for them to go to that section. It establishes regulations that you can have flag type signs, you can put them up, X amount of days before, things like that. So there is a separate section pertaining to those that would be different from these ones intended for commercial businesses. Related to the downtown, the historic overlay area, not too many changes were made for those regulations. Those ones we felt were covered pretty well in the 2020, 2021 update. Really what we were doing was just adding additional referencing to those regulations within the tables. So if you were within the mixed use district, the table did not clearly identify the separate section within our code for the downtown area if you were a historic building or had a historic sign. So those now include code references to those within those tables. And then the only other modification specific to the downtown area is if for some reason a property was within the historic area proposing a sign program, they would still not be able to propose a monument sign or a freestanding sign. It's trying to maintain that more historic nature of development.
Thank you.
Connor, a real quick question, and it's more related to a friend of mine has a crane company, and his crane now has permit requirements to actually have a warning light on top of the crane operation whenever it's raised above, I think it's 75 feet. I don't know if that applies to any of our fixed mounted signs or not. It might be something just to research because I know we were dealing with an airport tower that was being put over there and for a cell tower. And the cell towers now have to have some kind of beacon on them to warn of low-flying aircraft and that kind of thing. I don't know if that needs to be in this ordinance or if it even applies, just as a thought. What's your thoughts on that?
I have not heard of anything of that nature. I do recall, for example, when the cell tower was going up by the hospital, there was some concern over there with the helipad in the back. So that was just a specific condition based on, I think it was one of those Caltrans Division of Aeronautics and FAA rules based on proximity to an overflight zone. Wes, to see you walking up, maybe you have some background on it.
Yes, Connor is correct. That was a cell tower that was 110 feet tall permitted, and we did have to go to FAA, and they did ask for a light to be put on top of that. So if it gets that high, we do have an airport overlay zone and Airport Land Use Commission that we would go to get an FAA ruling on whether a light would be needed.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Goodson's in the queue.
This is just an aside. Are we talking about Chick-fil-A? Are we, or did I speak out of?
Maybe Scrubs Car Wash.
Oh, is that a car? Okay.
Surf through.
The surf-through car wash is the one that's now under construction. There is an application for a Chick-fil-A on the corner as well. So we'll be talking about that later.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
My bad.
Any other questions of Connor? Do we have any public comment cards on this?
Mr. Mayor, we do.
All right.
We have Bill Spear.
Mr. Spear, come on up.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. So, I was reading over it, and I'm getting ready to put up a couple signs, and I was thinking, man, they sure make stuff complicated. A person can't just put up a sign. I picked up a couple words. One thing, when he was talking about voluntary, I would be 100%, make the ordinance like you'd like to have it, and then make it voluntary so people can decide if they want to do that or not. I know that President Trump just signed a executive order that every ordinance that gets passed, you got to get rid of 10 of them. And so if, you pick that's what the one you want to do, then what 10 are we getting rid of? I way in for deregulating, not making stuff harder and more complicated, but how could it be more easier? As I'm looking at all the requirements for business owners to put up signs on their own property, and it just keeps adding to it and adding to it and adding to it. If you want to make a change, pick 10 things that you want to take off of it. Let's start working on deregulating, making stuff easier. I am getting ready to put up some more signs and doing some business stuff downtown, and it's unbelievable the amount of stuff that you have to do to try to get open. They can sink you, be in months and months and months trying to jump through this hoop, jump through that hoop. We need to, as a city, decide how we can make stuff easier instead of harder. And if it can't start with the signs, where's it gonna start? It ain't gonna start with nothing. A sign, you should be able to just put up a sign, and for your business, if it's a good sign, it'll bring business. If it ain't, you'll reassess it. But there does need to be some regulations, but not over regulation. It was ridiculous how much stuff is in it, and I think that you should either make it voluntary or take a lot of stuff out of it whenever you make an adjustment. Start thinking deregulation, not regulation. Just because you guys are on the city council and you do have to do stuff, but it don't have to be to pass more regulations. It could be to start taking away regulations and say, hey, where's regulations making stuff go slower? Where's it making it harder for people to open businesses? Where is it a little ridiculous? And so I would say if this was voluntary, I'd be for it. If not, I would say no, make it simpler, put in what's really important and leave all the other stuff out. Thank you.
we have any other cards?
No, Mr. Mayor, that was the only one.
All right. Okay, it's a public hearing. Councilman, any other comments? Then I would entertain a motion under the action item of the council.
This is for the first reading, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did you have something to say before?
We're good. We're just reviewing some of the documentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I move that we introduce the first reading of the ordinance 1886.
Do I hear?
We also have the other item to declare it a statutory exempt from CEQA as well.
So moved.
Yeah. Do I hear a second? For both items,
It's the first,
and this first reading.
this is the first reading.
Do we actually have to vote on this?
That's
Yeah,
what,
Mr. Mayor, you can just
Just-
introduce it that way. It's been introduced.
Okay.
And, in terms of the finding of CEQA exemption, that'll be built into the ordinance itself.
Okay.
But direction to staff from council, if there are no changes here,
Okay.
would be that we bring it back. The public hearing's already been held.
Right.
okay.
If there are no additional changes received from anyone in the meantime, we'll bring it back to council on consent for second reading and adoption.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that
All right.
explanation. And
Appreciate that.
kind of-
Vice Mayor Smith is in the queue real quick.
Yeah, I think just to comment on the hesitation, this is a big chunk of information here for us to absorb, and so some of us are still absorbing some of this, so.
Yes, sir. We can accept any additional input as we wait for this to come back before council, and that way we'll be able to gauge whether it should be a consent item or whether you need more discussion on it when we bring it back a second time.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move forward then to item number 14, which is, again, we're still in public hearing status, and adoption of the ordinance of 1887, amending the Chapter 15 of the City of Oroville Municipal Code, and a resolution of the Oroville City Council to amend Chapter 15, Section 15.60.030 and 15.60.040.
Thank you, Mayor.
Patrick has it.
City Council. In '23, the council adopted the 22 building code. When it adopted that building code, it did not also include the local OMC fire code, so that had been deleted. Last spring, I brought to council a reinstatement of the OMC fire code, but that should have been matched up to the 22 fire code. So this ordinance, this is the public hearing. The first reading was held at the last council meeting. So there are no substantial changes. There's no language that's being changed. It's just being moved around to be consistent with the 2022 building code. So all it does is it changes things around so that it matches the 2022 building code. And so if you have any questions, I'm available. And this is up for, we're asking for the council to adopt ordinance 1887.
Is this a second reading?
Second reading.
Second reading, okay. Any questions from council? Any cards on this item?
Mr. Mayor, we do not.
Okay,
I'll make a motion then.
go ahead.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Call the roll, please.
Motion passes with 7 yes.
Thank you, and we're still in the public hearing. Number 15, the public hearing and adoption of the ordinance related to proposed changes to the sale and use of safe and sane fireworks.
I'll take this one on, Mr. Mayor. This is a culmination of many, many meetings and much input. We did have the first reading of this back on March 4th, and additional input was given direction to staff to make 2 modifications to that. Those modifications have been made. So again, this the summary of this ordinance adds clarity that the permissible fireworks that the permissible fireworks that are allowed to be sold are safe and sane, so safe and sane is throughout the ordinance. It also talks about it extends the dates that they are allowed to be used, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and Veterans Day. Establishes a criteria where safe and sane fireworks would temporarily be prohibited, and there's a specific criteria in there, whether it's weather events, resource issues with public safety folks. And we added in the requirement that those selling safe and sane fireworks would disclose the location of where those are going to be stored, so if there is a public safety issue, we're aware of that. And then also included administrative fines and fees, and again, those last two items, we added some new language on there to add a little more teeth on the administrative fines. So I think we've captured all the input. Happy to answer any questions.
so.
And this is ordinance 1888.
Any council questions?
Are we sure we want to address it today? Maybe we can push it back.
Kick the can down the road, one more
Fine.
meeting.
I'm ready to vote.
I'm so ready to vote. Can
Well,
I make a motion?
And, well, let me add, I think it needs to happen for
permit.
for permits to start their process, so. Do we have any blue cards on this item?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, we do have 2 blue comments.
Okay, real quick, blue cards. Come
First,
on
we
up.
have Jackie Glover and follow along is Robert Bajer.
Jackie, come on up. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for bringing this up again. I just really wanted to come today to say thank you for listening to us and for having our backs as nonprofits, and also for the community to have a say in how they spend their holidays with their families. So I just wanted to say thank you for listening. Specifically, there was language in one of the drafts that stated if an event came up that we couldn't sell, and it looks like that language was removed so that we can still at least sell for the other holidays, which was one of the big things that I'd brought up at one of the meetings. So I really, really, really appreciate just listening, and the changes I think will really help, hopefully, mitigate some of the problems that we've been having, but also still allow us to have family fun and funds for the fundraisers for the nonprofits that really are just trying to help do the good things in the community that we do. So thank you.
All right, Jackie, thank you. Who's the next one?
Next, we have Robert Bajer.
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, councilman, council members, and city staff. I just came down here at my lunch break because I understand that you were ready to pass this. So to be honest with you, I did not write a speech. I did not write any statements whatsoever. But I do want to thank the council members. I want to thank the city staff for working not only to keep the community safe, but to allow us and the Veterans of Foreign Wars and other nonprofits to sell these fireworks. I know at the very beginning of this, I was very, I've had family in this area for 5 generations. My father was born in Paradise in 1936. So I really care about this community. I care about, I got family in them hills. And so I really wanted to make sure I wasn't putting the needs and the wants of the nonprofits and my nonprofits, specifically against the needs of the community. And I really think you all getting together the way you did with your city staff and everything, we did that. And I want to applaud you guys for all the work you did. Thank you very much.
Can we
Thank you,
vote?
sir.
We haven't voted yet.
And we won't hold your shirt against you.
Was that the last card?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's
I
the
would
last card.
entertain a motion.
Yes. Waive the reading of the ordinance. A point of privilege here. I have never bought a firework. Never. Don't even know what it looks like. And so I would like to be the one to make this motion.
Okay, you make the motion.
I like shoes.
She's
too
gonna be your
much.
first customer, Jackie.
Waive the reading of the ordinance and adopt by title ordinance number 1888, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oroville, amending Chapter 15.60 of the Municipal Code to incorporate changes applicable to safe and sane fireworks use.
Do I hear-
Second.
Call the roll,
Alright.
please.
Motion passed for 7 yeses.
Oh. Lordy be. Now we'll close the public hearing at, looks like almost 6:20. It took a while.
2 years?
Oh, well. Thank you all, and we do
I
appreciate
love
that.
to exaggerate.
Yeah,
9
regular
years,
business.
11 years.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Number 6, we're going to 6? All right, regular business, item number 6, please.
All right, number 6 is the federal legislative priority discussion. Again, we had our state reps here at the last meeting. We have the Ferguson group here this evening. And again, we've, just to recapture some of the information we shared at the last meeting, but the Ferguson group was here January 28th and 29th, met with staff, met with every council member, and tried to garner some input on what the priorities would be for the city of Oroville for calendar 2025. Put together a document. The document, again, is very broad in nature, and it's meant to be broad in nature so we can be responsive to advocate for or against legislation as it comes in. But it does definitely include all the things, many things that are very important to the city: infrastructure, the burdensome regulations having to do with housing and environmental issues, financial assistance to ensure the levee running downtown is structurally safe and can handle load variations, road funding, brownfield mitigation. So it includes all the things that I believe the council addressed. And we have Christy Moore and Chris Griffin here from the Ferguson Group, and they're going to kind of give you an update on what's going on back in D.C., because there's been a few things happening back there that I'm sure they can share with us, and also answer any questions on the priority document. So I'll turn it over to, I'm not sure if Chris or Christy, who's going?
Looks like Chris is up first.
Chris is up
Chris is
first.
on the big screen.
I'll go ahead. Yeah, thanks, Brian, and Mayor and members of the council. Good to see you again. I'm Chris Griffin. I'm a senior associate here with the Ferguson Group. Christy is our managing partner on the grants team, and so, as you know, we're working with you both on the federal advocacy front, but also on federal grants and state grants, other grants. As Brian indicated, we have prepared this federal agenda for the city. It is broad, and as Brian said, that is purposeful. There's not a lot of call outs of specific projects or named ideas or projects that the city may have. But part of that is because it is, on one hand, a statement of the city's priorities federally, but on the other hand, it's almost like an instruction set or a guideline for us back here in DC. So, as you know, things move fast sometimes here in DC, and we need the flexibility to be able to, go to Congress or go to agencies and talk with staff and point to something in the agenda that we can, say, this is very clearly falls within the scope of the agenda. We need to go to advocate for the city's interests. And, we don't always have time to take an item to council like this. The best immediate example of this is also sort of the big ticket item that recently happened in DC over the weekend or immediately prior. As you may know, we were facing the possibility of a government shutdown midnight on Friday, and that was averted by a relatively last minute vote on Friday by the Senate. The House actually had passed the vote earlier in the week on Wednesday. So to give you an idea of how quickly some things can develop and sort of materialize out of thin air, this current fiscal year, we are 6 months into it on the federal fiscal year, which begins on October 1st of every year. We had previously been under a funding mechanism called a continuing resolution, beginning on, I believe, December 20th of 2024. Continuing resolutions usually just extend prior fiscal year funding levels out for some set period of time. Typically, they're used to give Congress more room to negotiate a full suite of federal, spending measures, a budget. They sometimes are used. They're used so Congress can negotiate that without having a shutdown occur in the meantime. Sometimes, as we saw what happened last week, they are extended out a full year if Congress anticipates it won't be able to negotiate and pass spending bills, which usually will take a bipartisan negotiation, to pass. This spending bill that we were previously operating under began or was passed on, I believe, December 20th, 2024, and ran until March 14th, which was last Friday. We didn't have any clue of what the spending bill that they passed last Friday was going to look like until Saturday, the week before. Not this past Saturday, but it would have been, March 8th, I believe, was when they actually released the text of the spending bill. That spending bill was then passed by the House of Representatives on Wednesday, and then passed by the Senate on Friday. So in this instance, if you take, and again, as an indication or example of why the flexibility of something like a platform written generally is very useful, we would have had about 3 working days from the time the bill text was released on Saturday to go to bat and talk to folks in Congress, to go to bat for the city before the House voted on it. That's not to say that we would have had, in this instance, in this specific continuing resolution, a lot of leeway. Those are usually pretty set in stone by congressional leadership. But it is a good example of how quickly things can come out of thin air, right? We really had no clue. All of a sudden, they released text over the weekend. We have 3 business days before they pass the first iteration of it. And that's sort of the story of how things happen around DC. The platform broadly is divided into 4 sections. So we've got the public safety section, the community and economic development section, the agriculture, natural resources, and energy section, and then sort of a catch-all general government functions section. And each of those sections are based on our experience working with local communities, working with Butte County, your neighbors over in Paradise. We see a lot of similarities, although certainly not identical priorities, but there is overlap. And it's a good way to group the city's priorities and present them to your members of Congress, their staffs, and federal agencies. We are certainly open to suggestions, and if there's things along the way that become priorities or new priorities develop, that's what we're here to help you with. And those, whether they're added to the platform or not, those are things that we can work with agencies here in DC on. As I think has been discussed by some of the public comment and by some of the members, there are a lot of changes happening with the new administration. That has, as any administration does, there are lots of people who are excited. There are lots of people who are concerned. And there are lots of people who are uncertain. And we here in DC, our job is to help you navigate that. I think there's a lot of uncertainty about specific actions. There are courts and litigation happening. We have a bit of uncertainty in our jobs, but our job is to help you advocate for Oroville to the best extent possible. There are, to be sure, going to be a lot of opportunities with the way this administration approaches interactions with local governments such as yourselves. I think we see a lot of opportunities in some of the deregulatory efforts that are hopefully going to make certain federal programs easier to access, especially for rural and small communities. This has been a challenge that we've run into with both your neighbors, other places in California and other states across the nation, that small and rural communities have struggled to meet the burdens that some of the federal, whether they be grant programs or technical assistance or other financing programs, the strings attached by the federal government have been burdensome. And it may be relatively easy for a city like Los Angeles to meet those, or relative to the size of their budget, easy. But for a city like Oroville or smaller communities, it's much more difficult. So there are certainly opportunities there. But that is sort of the gist of the agenda. If you have questions about specific items, if there are items that you'd like to address on it or add, or we would certainly be happy to work with you, work with staff, and figure out the city's priorities.
Yeah, Chris, I'm actually first in the queue. I have a quick, short question for you.
Yeah.
Our new HUD Secretary, Scott Turner, in some way discovered close to $2 billion in funding that was in accounts. And the impression he left us all with from the housing conference I was at last week indicated it was going to turn it back to the general fund of the federal government. Is there any kind of map where folks are finding funds and then where it goes back into general fund? And is there anything people are talking about? Listen, what are we going to use it for now? If it's not been used, and how is it going to possibly be used? Anybody got a clue on that?
That is Christy, I see you went off mute. Did you want to?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. It's a little bit of both. The way the federal budget is actually secured and finalized is through Congress and through the appropriations process. So as Chris indicated, Congress just passed the continuing resolution, which was signed by the president for FY 2025, which we're 6 months into, and we're working under FY 2024 levels. And so what the continuing resolution did, which is an abnormal process to finalize the budget process, it actually defers FY 25 funding to FY 24 funding. So it essentially just carries the funding levels forward from FY 24 into FY 25. What the administration is doing at every level, every department and every agency is looking for those savings. And what you do find when they find those savings, they can repurpose them within their own budgets according to statute and what they're able to do with those funds and where they would like to see those funds go. So now that the FY 25 appropriations process is finalized and essentially that budget is set in stone, then we're starting to finally see Congress and the administration work on the FY 26 budget, which will start on October 1st of 2025, because the fiscal year goes from October 1st through the end of September of the following year. So we're in a little bit of a limbo right now in an unusual circumstance because we typically don't see the appropriations process for any given fiscal year extend this far and be finalized this late in the season. So they're just essentially saying we're going to do the exact same thing we did in FY 24, continue that for the next 6 months. But now we'll really start to see where the agencies, where the administration wants to go with the FY 26 budget and how Congress responds to that through the appropriations process.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Mayor, I'll just chime in really quick. There have been discussions about how to rescind funding from certain programs. I'm not sure in this specific example that you're talking about. I'm not sure as to the circumstances there. But by and large, the purposes and the way funds are allocated are subject to congressional authorization and congressional appropriations, like Christy said. There is some discretion for the administration to sort of claw back unobligated funds from certain programs to bring them back to the Treasury, which many administrations do. That's not uncommon. What is less common, and it's less clear as to whether the administration has the authority, legality to do it. This is part of the uncertainty in the courts right now. We'll have to see what they say, but there has been discussion about the administration clawing back funds that have already been contracted or obligated. And that's a major point of uncertainty. We're not sure how that will end up going forward.
Thank you, sir. We have Councilman Weber has a question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm super pleased to see all of the things that I wanted on there. Under community and economic development, under the first point, it says supporting federal programs that assist local communities with building, maintaining, and improving public spaces such as parks, historic districts, and community event spaces and more. Under community event spaces, would that, because I'm really interested in us going after funds for that indoor pool and a multi-use facility. I think not just me, I think that's probably a desire of the whole council, because I think that's something that's really needed. Would that be qualified under that?
That's broadly speaking, yes. I would say pools very uniquely among lots of public facilities are very difficult to fund at the federal level. They are explicitly precluded from earmark funding in appropriations. I mean pools, very, very specifically pools are excluded, along with, I believe it's museums and libraries. Could be wrong on those two, but the notion of that point, or the purpose of it, is to try to say, like, let's expand the types of public facilities that you can look at using earmark or other federal assistance programs for, because it's very narrow as it's currently written. Public spaces, public facilities, community event centers, it's can be a bit difficult to come by funding. So that's a long way of saying yes. I would say pools we would consider them a community event space or that sort of facility. Currently, the difficulty is that they are explicitly precluded from funding.
We have a question from Vice Mayor Smith.
Well, I have a follow-up on this.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
Well, you just inspired me to think a little outside the box. Then what if it was what if we have we do have two high schools in our community, and neither one has its own pool? Then could we go after educational dollars, federal dollars for that then?
Potentially, depending on the program and how you address it and who the requesting agency is. So one of the reasons why that we like to and advise clients to kind of generalize their priorities is because it gives us flexibility in the way that we use that. As Chris indicated earlier, this is kind of a benchmark for us to advocate for Oroville priorities on the Hill. So if there are programs or legislation that are addressed or introduced that allow for grant programs or federal funding to go to community type events, then we can respond on your behalf and support that. In the back end, we're also able to work with your staff and dig deep and get creative on ways to fund different elements of it. There's other ways to address it. Pools are a little bit more difficult than some other public facilities, but overall, public facilities in general, in terms of construction of buildings or sites, are generally much more difficult to fund overall. It's the biggest infrastructure piece, I believe, that was a big miss in the infrastructure package was allowing federal dollars to go to public facilities in that regard. But this gives us the ability to do both. So we can kind of look at creative ways to address that project, but also look for ways to potentially open up programs or create new programs or support the creation of new programs to help public facilities.
Sure, because we could also not only incorporate like our youth and our high schools, but we could also do a health and wellness element on the other side for our senior citizens. And, you know, I'm sure there's creative ways that we could get around this.
There's a lot of different angles to it.
Sure. Okay, and then I just want to, basically, I just wanted to kind of reiterate what I've already said about this. I'm super excited about this because I think it's time that we have strong advocacy at both the federal level and the state level for these dollars to come back into this community, because what we know here on this dais and in this city is that what we get from the state budget as far as our allowances, if you will, they're wholly inadequate to get what we need done in so many ways. And so I'm super excited for this, and I just want to thank you guys for your efforts.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Smith, you were in the queue. Do you have a follow-up question?
A comment and then just maybe kind of see what the appetite is there in DC. So as we know, overburdensome regulations, the glacial motion of government tends to cause things over time to unfortunately not happen in many cases. Or, you know, you can't build that here because. So recently, our governor has seen the light. And his newfound, not to get political, but I just want to quote him because I think it's important. We will not let over-regulation stop us from helping the LA community rebuild and recover? So with that, I'm thinking, well, if it's over-regulation for LA, then it's over-regulation for everyone, one would think. So that being said, with a newfound appetite in DC to kind of streamline and get things moving again, and to, those visions and those dreams that we had to see things built. And when it comes to Oroville, there's lots of vision on the table, with our, back to that tourism piece with the promise, the 2006 settlement agreement that is held up in Washington for almost 20 years, FERC. And so that being said, there's like $1 billion there, Councilman Weber, ready to be released by DC to Oroville to see things built and dreamt, or the dreams built here, whether it comes to warm water swimming facilities, lots of stuff. So I'm saying a lot of words here, but with that kind of newfound energy in DC, is there any opportunity here to kind of shake things loose for our state? Since Newsom himself has claimed that, hey, overregulation, all this red tape, and it's time to get things moving again. Can you leverage that for, whether it's FERC or other things for our community? Because, we can have great ideas, great visions to build, but then it gets all gummed up in the works with, all this government regulation and overregulation. I've said a lot. Maybe you could just comment on that.
No. It tracks. I think that we hear that from a lot of communities. A lot of our clients have similar sentiments, and I'm personally not an expert on the state level politics there. What I will say, and what we are seeing at the federal level and in other states, particularly states that are not out west, the East Coast, the Midwest, and the Southeast, are more and more becoming aware specifically of the wildfire issue and recovery and challenges in the wake of wildfires. That used to be just a Western issue, and now we're seeing it become an East Coast issue, a Mid-Atlantic issue. We just saw, fires devastate parts of South and North Carolina. And there is becoming a greater awareness of impediments to rebuilding and mitigating, creating fire resilient communities, and those impediments. So I do think there's opportunities there. Certainly having the state government be aligned is helpful, because if one or the other, if it's the federal government throwing up impediments that the state government doesn't like, or vice versa, those are impediments either way. So I do think that there is going to be movement on the issue of rebuilding communities after fires and other disasters, and mitigation resilience activities pre-disaster, and reducing certainly some of those regulatory burdens. We also know that FEMA is sort of one of the focuses for a lot of reform now. And I know that communities in Butte County have had a lot of experiences working with FEMA, and not all of them positive. There are certainly good people that work at FEMA, but there have also been a lot of challenges in working with them. So what remains to be seen at the federal level, and this is a good point generally, a lot of these executive orders and the actions coming out of the administration are directing studies or reports to be made to the president, or recommendations be made to the president on what reforms should be made. We will know a lot more about what specific reforms are going to be made, particularly on the executive branch, the regulatory side, in the next few months. These executive actions had deadlines of some 30 days, some 60 days, some 90 days. So we're in a bit of a limbo period right here to see exactly what actions and what specific reforms the president is going to make. We know that he's going to make some, and some he's already started. We know that they're coming. We're not sure what they are. So.
Very cool. Any other questions from council? Folks, I want to appreciate your time and effort. It's very enlightening for us all here, and we appreciate your time in Washington.
Good. Thank you.
you.
We're really excited to be working with you and Mr. Ring and the team there. So I know you've got a lot of good ideas and a lot of stuff we can work together on. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. We appreciate that. All right, next item.
So approve the.
Approve it or
approve the
provide any
priority
direction.
document.
If you're all good with it, we can approve it and adopt it, and we'll be
Do
ready
we
to go.
want to vote, or you want a consensus? I think we're all in consensus on it. Yeah,
we're all
good.
good, right?
Yeah. Okay. Item number 7, award of construction contract, Hewitt Park renovation and budget adjustment.
Hey, yep,
So
that's
moved.
me.
Please, go ahead.
Excellent. Well, you might want to know what the financial impact is before we
I
jump on
looked.
that one. Yeah,
I
okay.
looked.
I figure you're already pretty familiar.
Yeah.
Yes.
But for those who don't know, Hewitt Park is just it's a phase 2 that's been, I think, much anticipated. New pickleball courts, multi-use turf, walking paths, dog park, drought-tolerant landscaping, etc., slides, play structures, splash pad. It's going to be really, really amazing. And plans and specs were advertised December 9th. Bids received February 11th. 5 bids were received. Low bidder was R&R Horn Contractors at about $4.5 million, which included a base bid of about $4.2 million and an option item for about $250,000. So our engineer's estimate was $4.6 million, so it came in about $100,000 less than what the estimate was at. Staff is recommending a contingency of 10%, which would bring the overall budget to just under $5 million, really, $4.983 million. So as far as fiscal impact, the city does have a Proposition 68 grant in the amount of just over $4.5 million, which won't cover the full 4.9, but there are an additional $2.8 million available in park impact fees. So just so you know, though, as far as dollars already spent, the city does have a contract with Melton Design Group. They've been the ones working on this design. That is at about $470,000. And we've also purchased just under $1 million in the actual playground and splash pad equipment. So we've spent already about $1.5 million in committed funds. So the park impact fees required to cover the construction, the design, the equipment purchases is $1.826961 million, which also still doesn't include the construction management services, which is going to be the next item here. But the remaining balance in the park impact fees, so this would be using all of the Prop 68 grant, $4.5 million, plus the park impact fees, the amount remaining in the park impact fees would be just over $1 million. So that said, the city still thinks this is a fantastic project and would be a great use of those funds. And so we are recommending we award the contract to R&R Horn with the 10% contingency.
Council questions? Councilman Weber.
Just more an observation. This is just so exciting to finally see this come to fruition, and we're going to see a beautiful park right in the middle of our town that is going to be such a key aspect to our ability for our families to gather, kids to have fun. I am just thrilled with this and couldn't be more excited for us to adopt this and approve this if it is the council's will.
Vice Mayor Smith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just briefly, item, not to get ahead here, item 15, which is the bedrock conversation. How much does this leave us in the kitty for some of that additional work that needs to be, some love, spread around the community and our parks?
Just over $1 million.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
what was left in park impact fees.
And that's barring no faux pas with the project.
That is
So
post
we-
10% contingency.
We do have that. We
Mhm.
have seen that eaten into and beyond a couple of times.
Mhm.
So just I'm keeping that in the back of my mind, but I'm fingers crossed.
And Ms. Vice Mayor, I want to stress too, the park impact fees do have limitations on their use for like expansion of services. So much of the work at Bedrock would be other funding sources we're going to have to identify because it's not, it's.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
There will
Yes.
be some expansion though that the council has discussed, but
Right.
much of that will be
Right.
other sources.
This is true. Thank you.
Councilman Goodson's in the queue.
I just had a question. Which district is this in? Is it in Councilman Reynolds or Councilman Weber? So both Bedrock and Hewitt. I'm moving down.
We need a park in District.
Yeah, there you go.
District A needs a park.
Yeah. Councilman Thompson.
Yeah, I just want to thank staff for all their hard work on this. With, the delay, it's nobody's fault, just think just the bureaucracy in its finest, because it's been, absolute years.
3 years.
Yeah,
3
long-
years.
A long time. It
Yeah.
reminds me of Parks and Rec with their vision. Finally seeing that.
There's been a little
Parks.
bit of turnover too. That doesn't help, for sure.
Yeah, so thank you for your hard work on this.
Yes. I have to
Thank
thank Tim. Tim's really the one who's been driving this, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks,
Great.
Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Councilman Reynolds is in the queue.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we did work on this for quite a while, and I think when we started this, there were no districts, so it
Right,
was
there weren't any.
citywide. So really appreciate that. But you said something about 200,000 or 250,000 on some contingency?
It was an option. So there was, I
Option,
want to say
yeah.
it was fencing, so the perimeter fencing, there was like, if we could have a different height change, or if we wanted it to be the security fencing. So there was about $250,000 in like options.
I heard something that the fencing, no, this was around Corporation Yard that was
Okay.
600,000 or something that was, yeah, so.
Well, yeah, yep.
So we'll talk about that when that comes up.
Okay.
The
Okay,
Log House.
thank you.
Councilman Johnstone is in the queue.
What district?
Yes, thank you. So, remind me again on security measures for this beautiful park that's going in. There's fencing that's going around. The barbecue pits are removable, if I'm not mistaken.
I do not know the answer to that. I do know that lighting is included in this. Right now, Hewitt Park has a lighting issue, so there'll be all new solar lights that go in, and the fencing around the perimeter, but I don't know as far as the barbecue.
So is it gonna be
I can-
locked gates at night?
I believe that's the intent.
And it was, I'm almost certain it was the no
Yep.
climb fence as well.
No
was a-
climb.
Was an add-on to that to protect all
Okay.
this.
I mean, that's my biggest concern is
Yep.
just this beautiful
Right.
park and then it being vandalized.
Right.
So, okay, thank you.
We can send out a summary, just a reminder of all the nuances.
Yes,
that are
please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Weber?
Yeah, just as a follow-up too, I think, and please forgive me, I know I've asked this question before, and I know you answered it. I can't remember the answer, though. Was the refurbishing or repainting of the trains involved in that as well to bring them up to speed in terms of like beautifying the trains as well? Because the trains are in really bad shape, right?
They are, and I'm trying to remember if that was part of the scope or if that was going to be something where we were going to try to team up with, Juan, do you know?
With members in the community.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was, right.
There was I believe somebody in Oregon that had an interest in a part that was on that train that was gonna trade out the work for the painting.
Because it's a working part.
Yeah.
And they were going to replace it with the dysfunctional part.
Uh-huh.
Right,
And
since it's stationary.
take care of the paint.
Because and then also, as far as the fencing elements too, the new fencing would be around the trains, right? Because
Yes.
it's not going to be like beautiful fence up front, cyclone fence on, okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
No cards on this? I entertain a motion.
I move that we award a contract to R&R Horn Contractors and approve the budget adjustment,
Second?
which takes a supermajority.
I'll second that.
Call the roll, please.
Motion passes with 7 yes.
All right, the next one, the follow-up, number 8, is award of contract for the construction management services on the Hewitt Park renovation project and budget adjustment.
Yes, so this one is just a follow-up. As I was saying, construction management was not included in the numbers I just provided you. We did request proposals for construction management specifically. There were a couple of interviews that we held. Contractor that was selected as the best fit was Alpha CM, and the proposed cost for that was $425,000. This is to cover an estimated 200 working days for construction for that project. And the reason that the city staff really feel that construction management services are needed is because we do have inspections, very special inspections, due to the fact that we have splash pads, playgrounds, and we cannot afford to have full-time staff on site taking pictures, daily. And then when it comes time to, ensure that the contractor is being paid for the work that they've done, dailies and photos are really critical to make sure that we are paying the contractor the amount that they're owed, and that they're not also overcharging us for anything. So we do feel that this is critical and worth every penny, especially because we do have $4.5 million worth of grant funds on the line. And we do feel that, $425,000 for $4.5 million is a good insurance for making sure we get every dollar of the grant funds. And grants, Prop 68 is not as challenging as far as documentation as some of the Caltrans, local assistance procedure manual type of projects, but Prop 68 does have very specific requirements on what they need to see for reimbursement.
Any questions from staff, council? Do we have any cards on this item?
We do not have any, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Thompson.
Thank you. Are there, I see the value in having it, the number seems crazy. I'm going to go into construction management. My question is with this, is there, we've had, in my time here on the council, there's been projects that have gone sideways. The police department, this comes to mind. Is there, I'm not sure if you or maybe, our attorney could answer this for us, but is there a recourse for the construction manager to, if they, obviously you guys vetted them and whatnot, but is there just like recourse in case, something goes awry and they didn't do their job?
Yeah, it's called sue. Sue.
I would say we would see, contractually, we would, I do not know, I would have, Dave.
Yeah, I know that's their job, is to stay on top of it, because, I can say that I don't have the expertise to watch over and do all the stuff that needs to be done. But I guess the value and the heart behind of why I'm asking that question is because of how much time and resources put into the project. I would just, I know that you guys vetted and came up with, I can see you chose that one over one guy that was a little bit lower. Not that much lower, but a tiny bit lower. And based on the interview that you had with Alpha CM, that you saw that as a better fit for our community, which is great. And I understand that, and I respect your opinion on that. But yeah, just the heart is I want to make sure this gets done correctly, and we don't have another. Yeah. So that's, I guess, the reason for my question. So can we look into that?
I can answer generally. The contracts that we enter into have sort of performance metrics in them. So if there is a dispute as you go along, there are dispute resolution procedures. If you later find out that there's a problem, obviously there's going to be an issue of who's responsible for that. Is it the contractor? Is it something that contract management should have caught? It's kind of hard to speculate where you go with a problem that arises after the fact. But as you go, when you're paying for these services, there's monitoring on the part of the city as to how this is proceeding. So if you come to a point of dispute, you can terminate. There are termination provisions in the contracts, and you can, address that as you go. So there's also in there insurance requirements, general liability insurance requirements. So if there's an accident or something of that nature, typically we we source them. And there are also indemnification provisions as well. So if there's a claim from outside against the city or the contractor, for anything that's an error on the contractor's part, they indemnify us. So those are all in the contracts and the standard contracting
And
language.
I guess it comes down to this, knowing that you're here, I'm okay.
Councilman Reynolds is in the queue.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Owner's rep for construction management is an absolute must. I don't know how we ended up in that debacle at the public safety building, but it was staff, no one here.
No
They're not here anymore,
safeguards.
but they paid the guy all the money and it was when I was brought into it, I said, what is going on here? And, well, we were trying to run it. Well, hey, construction management, so you're doing everything right, and I'm really happy to see that because there's reasons why this stuff it's tried and tested and put in place, and I realize some people make things look easy, but a lot of times jobs are very involved, and this is one of them. There's a lot of moving facets of this that need to be overseen on a daily basis. So I'm so thankful for that. Anyway, we got a hold of that public safety building and actually took the steps. There was somebody who wanted to declare a state of emergency. No emergency, stop right now. But we need to stop and get an architect, put the plans together, and start from square one. And we did, and construction management and all of that. Because I'm a contractor, I know, I work on a lot of big projects, and there's always an owner's rep there. And they have our interests in mind.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Vice Mayor Smith is in the queue.
Yeah, just a quick comment on, I think it's essential. I would also just recommend moving forward with this project because this project management firm is going to be very intimate with all that equipment, maintenance manuals, the ongoing upkeep of the new facilities online. So I would recommend this stay very close with those folks, and also for the city. And I think I mentioned this before. We really need to have a policy in place for the sustainability long term, because there's a lot of moving pieces with this park. It's a beautiful, beautiful addition to our community, and I know it's going to be a tremendous blessing especially to young families. But to the future, to really work well and to pick their brain, if you will, and so that we fully have our maintenance department has a full understanding of what's being handed to them and what's required to keep that thing moving into the future. So just some recommendations coming from another former contractor. So thank you.
Was that a motion?
Let's do it.
I'll
Yeah.
second
All right.
it.
It's been motioned for item number 8 to adopt the actions requested. We hear a second. Let's call the roll.
Motion
Thank
passed
you all.
over 7 yes.
All right, number 9, the employment contract amendment with Alyssa Stutz, Assistant Director of Public Works.
It's second, third, fourth.
Do we have any cards on this?
We don't need no cards.
Mr. Mayor, we do not.
All right, call roll. Thank you very much.
Motion passed with 7 yes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Number 10, employment contract with Amy Bergstrom, Director of Business Assistance and Housing Development.
So moved. We don't need no cards.
Contract, it's item number 9361.
Motion passed with 7 yes.
Thank you.
Way to be
Which-
All right.
Way to be there.
Number 11, appointment to Housing Loan Advisory Committee. Action requested to appoint Laura,
Yes. Yeah, that's a rat tattoo.
Hicks to the Housing Loan Advisory Committee.
Yeah. Laura Hicks.
Laura Hicks?
Laura, I really apologize, I'm gonna probably really.
Beat it up.
This, but, Laura.
Laura,
Yeah, Laura Hicks.
do I hear a motion?
Amen.
Motion? Call the roll. Thank you. Appreciate that, Laura.
Motion passed with 7 yes.
Number 12,
Oh, yes.
sponsorship opportunity for the Oroville Area Chamber of Commerce, Mr.
And obviously, I need to recuse myself.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Yes,
Motion
second.
seconded.
And it's
Any cards in the
For,
side?
for a table, it's something that we always
Yeah,
do
right.
every
Table-
year.
table of eight,
Absolutely.
okay.
As agenda size, no cards, call the roll.
Yes.
Motion passed 7 yes, 1 excuse.
Someone selected vice mayor, appreciate that.
6 approved, 1 re-excused.
Communication, another hearing of non-agenda, any other non-agenda items? No cards?
The mayor.
No cards, all right. Future agenda items, council.
Well, I can't say the Gateway project.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Go ahead, Councilman Weber.
Yeah, thank you very much. So bear with me, I know we've been in here a minute, but Council Member Goodson and Johnstone and I have been talking about this a little bit. And it's to piggyback off the pavement management team conversation we were having before. We have the tools and manpower and know how to get this done. However, there's some state rules that we're running up against that are dictating what we can do, okay? Certain restrictions that we have right now, current restriction would be that we can't grind any more than 1 inch deep, okay? And that doesn't give us an adequate grind and overlay. So upon inspection, what we've discovered is that we as a charter city can bring it back to the ballot for an amendment on our charter to remove, because our charter under our Article 28, Sections 4 and 2, 2 and 4 says that we have to abide by the, basically the state rule. But being a charter city, we could go back in and we could say, hey, we're not going to abide by local, the state
Requirements.
rule, and we could write our own ordinance, but in order to get there, we have to first
It
get it
has to
back
be
on
on the
ballot
ballot.
to amend the language of our charter, and then we can adopt an ordinance, then we could retain local control, and then we could dig a little deeper and do our, instead of 1 inch repairs, we could do 2, 3 inch repairs, and we could do a more adequate, because what we want to do is we want to give Alyssa and her team the proper tools to do what she needs to do. So what Councilmember Goodson and Councilmember Johnstone and I were discussing is that line of how do we get from here to putting it on the the ballot in 2026, and then after that revisit, adopt an ordinance that says we will retain local control, and then we could actually start doing more of that work ourselves. Pardon me. So, but in the meantime, there's a lot of work that we could be doing, even if it is 1 inch, plus we got crack sealing, we got tons of stuff. Quite literally, right, Alyssa? Tons. So we could keep ourselves very, very busy over the next 2 years while
Years.
working toward that objective. So I just wanted to put that on future agenda items, and then Councilmember Johnstone and I, and Goodson and I have all been discussing this already, so.
I think that's a pretty clear item. The attorney can give us some direction on that and how we can, and/or possibly amend the charter with a vote and/or charter policy too. So those are all good possibilities.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, last time we did a charter review committee, so my recommendation would be, use an ad hoc committee to make recommendations that are going to pertain to, what areas of home rule the council wants to exercise instead of, and then
Right.
look at your charter, opt out of, state law where you make certain findings or, what you want to include,
Sure.
and then go from there.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Councilman Goodson's in the queue.
Yes, I just wanted to, for those in TV land, there's always an intent and purpose. And I believe that what we're trying to do is to enhance the quality of our roads and the longevity. That's really the bottom line.
Okay, cool. Any other future agenda items from council? Any correspondence, which is already attached to this agenda document? Seeing no other comments, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned to the next regular meeting of April 1st, 2025 at 4 PM. We are adjourned. Thank you all at 7:06.